The Bosnian Serbs don't call a massacre a concentration camp. Come in, they challenged ITN, and see it for yourselves. Under Serbian armed guard for our own protection, a 3-day journey ended here at the gates of a disused mine in northern Bosnia. Here we were shown only several hundred of the 2,500 prisoners, all Muslim men, at or masker, we were told, to be interrogated. Those found guilty of fighting Serbs were then sent to prisoner of war camps, the innocents to refugee camps. This is all we saw of the prisoners and of a massacre itself. They never spoke. The only voices, those of the guards ordering them to eat faster and leave. How are you treated? What are the conditions, I asked. I don't want to tell lies. I can't speak the truth. Thank you for coming. We were told that the army does not control a massacre, that these prisoners are the responsibility of the civil authorities and local militia. We sought an explanation from the camp commandant. Would you describe this as a prison camp, a transit camp, or a refugee camp?
No, this is not the camp, this is the center, the transit center. Omarska and Ternopoli, both the centers, not camps.
And then the men left, back to wherever they'd come from, away from our cameras and questions, hidden from the United Nations and the Red Cross, who've been denied access to a massacre, hidden until now from the world. We were not allowed to follow them to their living accommodation, what appeared to be the larger of the two buildings, to see the other 2,000 detainees and how they live.
What's your reason? Just to try to do my best here.
To show us where they live.
When Dr. Karadzic,
well.
why are you not fulfilling Dr. Karadzic's promise to us?
He promised us something else and said, you can do this and that, and not that.
We've seen nothing. We've seen one dining hall and 80 prisoners. And so we left, our hosts fulfilling their promise to show us the second camp, Ternopoli, where 2,000 refugees are living. We were not prepared for what we saw and heard there.
How long have you been here?
Several hundred said that they'd arrived from a massacre that morning or from another detention camp, released to this refugee center after days, sometimes months of interrogation. We asked if the allegations of beating in the detention centers were true.
I can't say much about that. See, people were hungry, that's true.
I'm not sure that I'm allowed about that. You know, can you understand me?
Tell us the truth.
I'm afraid. 250 ljudi.
250.
What happened? In this vicious civil war, where atrocities against Serbs as well as Muslims occur daily, finding the truth isn't easy. We ourselves saw no evidence of beatings on any refugee here, and we only heard their allegations. Allegations even the camp doctor seemed unable to substantiate in front of our Serb hosts.
Does he get any cases here of people who've been beaten from the other camps?
Ali imate slučaj da su bili neki koji su tučeni u drugom kampu, recimo podavedeni ovdje. Ima tako. Yes.
Many?
Da li ih ima mnogo ili...
Would you be happier speaking another language?
Yes, absolutely.
I was able, however, to smuggle out a roll of film, and the man who took these pictures and gave it to me said he would be killed if caught. He begged me to check that in 3 days he was still alive. And amongst all this horror, some small touches of humanity.
This is my friend.
Like 19-year-old Igor, a Serb, who now stands guard over the friends he grew up with. Muslims from the village they once shared as children, now homeless, persecuted and behind wire. Igor took us to another side of Chernopoli, where we met some who'd come here by choice, those who'd run for their lives to this pitiable camp. Amongst them, 13-year-old Sana, who said he was used as a human shield by extremist Muslims on his own side. The Serbs have taken his mother.
You're frightened?
Yes,
Yes, little. Where do you want to be? If you could shut your eyes and be anywhere, where would you like to be?
Kad bi ovako zažmurio I kad bi poželao negdje da odeš, gdje bi volio da odeš sad?
Pa volio bi da odem za majkom, tamo da nađem.
To follow my mother, to find my mother, where is she?
No one we spoke to knew why they'd been brought here, whether they were prisoners, refugees, or what lay in store for them. In this civil war, there is no sense, and a great deal of horrifying cruelty. Penny Marshall, News at 10, Northern Bosnia.
This is the tragedy of Srebrenica, a town that was promised protection by the United Nations. A safe haven it was proudly called, now overrun by Bosnian Serb forces.
Nema puška, nema panika.
Don't panic, they're told. Tens of thousands of refugees huddled together, filmed by Bosnian Serb TV, seeking protection from a few Dutch peacekeeping soldiers. But the UN troops were powerless, no more than witnesses to Serb aggression. The Bosnian Serb General Mladic, seen by many in the West as a war criminal, walked in as if a conquering hero. You have nothing to worry about, he said, and then promptly ordered the women and children to separate from the men of fighting age. It was a clear attempt to hunt down his real enemy, the defiant Muslim soldiers who had kept his advance at bay. His soldiers were filmed distributing chocolate to the Muslim children. Cynical propaganda. For around the corner, his troops were overseeing the humiliation of the local population, forcing them out on buses, a siege ending with the women and children of Srebrenica streaming out as refugees. And all of this in one of the 6 areas of Bosnia that has been designated by the UN as a place where civilians would be safe from attack. Far away on the Croatian coast, the UN Rapid Reaction Force is still being assembled. Dutch Marines arriving this morning. But the role of such troops, like the position of the entire UN mission in Bosnia, is more uncertain than ever. The French government have stated they favour tough military action, perhaps even trying to recapture Srebrenica. But the Foreign Secretary Malcolm Rifkin argued that the UN Protection Force, UNPROFOR, was ill-equipped for such aggressive action.
UNPROFOR is not configured to fight a war. We must rely on the judgment of UN commanders on the ground as to whether they remain able to carry out their mandate. So withdrawal must remain an option.
But Lady Thatcher, speaking in the House of Lords, said there must be action now, no more talking.
Soft words won't do. We need stern, calmly calculated, effective action.
Tonight, here at the Foreign Office, international mediators are once again studying the way forward. But the withdrawal of UN peacekeeping troops is still seen as a disastrous option. As one leading negotiator put it, it would pave the way only for a wider, longer, and still more brutal war. Robert Moore, News at 10, at the Foreign Office. Women and children, exhausted and confused, are still trekking across the front lines of eastern Bosnia. They have been forcibly removed from Srebrenica by Bosnian Serb forces, in scenes that have left powerless UN workers in shock. They are heading towards Bosnian government-held territory. Many are already weakened and vulnerable after surviving one of the longest sieges of the Bosnian War. The sudden fall of Srebrenica and the brutal removal of its civilian population has left the United Nations unprepared.
We haven't any preparation made for the refugees, like toilets, tents, like that. And we are trying to do our best, but it's going to take some time.
Even now, the Bosnian Serb forces are obstructing the humanitarian effort, blocking a convoy and preventing aid workers from reaching the refugees. Of equal concern is what will happen now to the Muslim men of fighting age who have been rounded up. The UN has expressed contempt for Serb promises to respect human rights.
The Bosnian Serbs have publicly stated that they would treat the civilian population, quote, according to the Geneva Conventions. Forcing women, children and wounded to walk across confrontation lines is hardly what the authors of the Geneva Conventions envisaged as being in accordance with these conventions.
The UN has said it is now facing a renewed humanitarian disaster. Thousands of distraught and hungry civilians in need of help. Some spoke of the Dutch peacekeeping troops being reduced to tears as they proved unable to stop the Serb aggression.
As reports of the alleged massacre swept the refugee camp at Tuzla, the women of Srebrenica staged an angry demonstration, blocking the airstrip running alongside the camp. The target of their anger is the UN, who they say failed them in Srebrenica. They say the UN soldiers were forced to hand over their uniforms and weapons to the Serbs. The husbands, sons, or both of almost all these women are missing, and the reports of the alleged massacre have only intensified their fears. I want the UN to bring my husband and son back to me, dead or alive, says this woman. It was a tense confrontation with the UN troops, who grew increasingly nervous about us filming.
You are talking things about the UN that's not very good for us.
Well, they can say, but they're allowed to say what they want to say, yeah?
Of course, but when you put something more, that the fire is going to burn more, then it's not good for us to work with these people.
These people are upset, very upset.
As with most allegations of atrocities here, there's no independent corroboration, but the consistency of the reports must give rise to grave concern. These women want the UN to investigate, and investigate now. Observers say the massacre, if it turns out to be true, is probably revenge by the Serbs for Bosnian government killings in Srebrenica in the first year of the war. Bosnia's spiral of misery goes on. Mark Austin, ITN, Tuzla.